Hey everyone, How To Homemaker here. So as I'm sure you can tell already, this video is going to have kind of a different feel to it. I've got some bad news. My cousin has died. I debated even doing this because I don't want to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to get attention. I'm not trying to get likes for my page. I'm not trying to do anything, but just the thought of carrying on as if nothing happened, making a video and not mentioning anything, I didn't feel right about that because something did happen and you didn't know her, but if you did, you'd be sad too. Yeah, it's been hard. It's been a long week. The last few videos I've posted have been pre-recorded. We've just been in a daze. I didn't know what else to do. I know that the channel is important to me. I've made a commitment to you guys to continually put out videos. And like I said, I did have a couple pre-recorded, but I'm still not really ready to film and teach a bunch. I do have something to teach out of this because I do want to make something good. So that's why I'm here. At one point in time, I told her that I would make her leg warmers. I like to just knit without a pattern sometimes, and I tried it a couple times and it didn't really work out. And I got frustrated and I gave up, and yeah, it was weird. I don't know why it didn't work out. They're leg warmers, it's just a tube. You don't think it would be that hard to mimic, but I couldn't quite get the feel that I wanted. And I just gave up, and I thought, well, why not try again? And so I did, and I failed again. It looks so stupid. And I think I can fix it, but I had to rip a lot of it apart. They look like parachute pants. I'm saying I don't care. I'm only doing this in one take if I can help it. Well, obviously I did a cut already, but I'm not. Yeah. So they look like parachute pants. They looked ridiculous, and I put them on and I laughed so hard. Because one time my cousin, she bought me a shirt and it looked really good on the hanger, and I can see why she bought it for me, but when I put it on in the bathroom, it just looked way different. It looked so funny. I was so sure it would look good right up until I put it on, just like this leg warmer. Sorry guys, I'm not trying to bum you out. Please don't unsubscribe. Anyways, it was a touching moment, but as a result, I had to rip the whole thing apart because I wasn't going to show you guys. Not this fail, anyways. Rip the whole thing apart. And as a result, I do kind of have something to show you guys in the end. I ripped a little bit too much, and I need to fix some stitches that I dropped, I guess you'd call it. I don't really know what it's called, but it's just when you rip too much of the actual knit out beyond what you wanted. So I'll show you how to fix that. I also want to show you guys how to cast on. We haven't done that yet with the double pointed needles. So yeah, with that being said, I'm just gonna sign out. I am not gonna say my usual signature sign out, and I'm just gonna say goodbye. Then I promise the rest of this part 2 won't be so depressing. If you want to celebrate her life, it's just still pretty sad. So yeah, bye guys. So with any type of knitting, with any type of needle, you need to start out with a slip knot like this and casting on. I do have a different instructional video on how to do a slip knot and cast on, so I'm not going to go over it in great detail here, but I'm assuming that you already know how to do this, and let's just carry on. I am going to put 5 stitches on each one of my needles, and the thing that you have to remember is that this is not an intimidating process. I know because there's more needles, it just looks like there's a lot more going on and there's so much that you have to think about, and oh my gosh, there's no way I could ever do that. But there really is not a lot going on. See how I'm taking the yellow needle and putting it exactly where the blue needle would have been, and then just carrying on, casting on? That's all you have to do. You just have to pretend that the yellow needle is the blue needle pretty much, and just keep your stitches separated. There's more counting in knitting when you're knitting with double pointed needles usually. It's what I find anyways. And I know a lot of people, like I said, are intimidated by this, but watch what I do. I'm going to grab the red needle. I'm going to put it in the exact physical location where the yellow needle is. And then I'm going to carry on casting on. And that's it. It's not a hard process. If you know how to knit and purl and cast on, that's all you need to know. There are some tips that you can do to make this process easier. Other than that, you just need to practice. Then there's one thing that you have to know that's tricky, well, it's not even tricky, it's just something that you have to keep in mind, is that when you are aligning yourself to do the next row, to do your first knit, then you have to make sure that none of your needles got crossed over, like flipped around while you were doing this process of casting on. You see how the tops of the needles have the loop and then the bottoms of the needles have that little knotted area that's the bottom of the cast on? Well, all of those are on the bottom of the needles, so I know that I'm oriented where I need to be oriented. But if any point of the process your needle got flipped around, and this is okay, but this is not. What I'm about to do here, flipping it around like that, that's not okay. If I were to carry on that way, that would be considered a twist and you would see that in your final project. So when you do that first knit, one thing with double pointed needles, I try and make sure that the needles are in the middle, or the work is in the middle of the needles, because it's very easy when you have more stitches for your work to slip off the back of the needle. That's very frustrating. But the first purl is as if you were just using 2 needles. You see the blue needle in my left hand and the yellow needle in my right hand. Just imagine you have just 2 needles, like your normal 2 knitting needles that you knit with. That's all that this is. And you get to the very end of the row and you take the needle out like you normally would. I think I had a bit of I had to fix it a little bit here. You take the needle out, the blue needle, and then you rotate everything in your hands because the blue needle is your free needle now, and you just carry on. It's not going back and forth, it's just going in one long continuous knit, basically. Well, not basically, that's what it is. You don't go back and forth. That really is the only difference too in this, is that now, because when you knit back and forth, one side is the right side and the other side is the wrong side, or yeah, I think that's what they call it in patterns. But when you're knitting on 3 needles like this, double pointed needles, what's facing you is always the outside and what's on the inside is always the inside, because you're making a final project. You don't sew up the back on any of these. I'm surprised at how many patterns that I read lately that say to knit on normal needles, this is like a tongue twister one for you guys and me really, but you knit back and forth on normal needles and then sew up the back. And I just think, who wants to do that all the time? Sew up the back of their stuff and have a seam? Why wouldn't you learn how to do this?
So if you guys like to knit, I suggest you learn how to knit this way because you can switch any of those patterns into using these needles. You just have to read it through and then be smart about it is all. So when you're going for that first knit on your second row, you see that area that I'm pointing at there? You just have to make sure that you tighten that area up, get the slack out, make sure that it's good for consistency and tension from the rest of the knits that you've done. And then basically after this, like your first cast on row and then your first knitting row and then your second knitting row, after that it's so easy. Like there's no worrying at all if your needles are going to flip around. There's no looseness in the project. You're just knitting. You're a knitting fool at that point. So that's it. Like I hope that I've broken this down so it's not so taxing, not so intimidating. It's just more needles. That's all that's it's not like you have to know that one piece of yarn goes from one end to one needle and through the loops of the second needle on the third. Like it's not crazy. You're still just knitting back and forth. If you know how to, I don't know what I'm doing with my hands here. I was trying to say stuff and what I would say. But yeah, if you're trying to knit and learn how to knit, this is not that crazy. This is something that you can attempt, and I hope that I've made it less daunting. So now I'm about to pull up the mistake that I made. The mistake is on the blue needle there. I had the leg warmer completed totally and I ripped the whole thing out. Oh, this is when I'm describing. When you're knitting on 4 knitting needles, you're just doing one continuous. Yeah, I shouldn't do hand motions next time. Sorry, guys. It's kind of a bad time. Anyways, what I did was I ripped too much down. You see that? Down. What you have to do when you're fixing this is that you work it as if had you're just knitting normally. You see how I know that it's wrecked is that this is the yarn that I'm supposed to knit with and I still have that loose string there. So that means that I'm down too far. I have to put that loose string somewhere and I have to add the stitches in. So I'm getting another needle and you just, like I said, you have the work in your, I think I'm going to put it in my left hand. What did I end up doing here? It's just trying to, the first time I've ever really done this to teach someone, whenever this happens, I just sort of fix it. So yeah, you put it in your left hand. Sorry about that, guys. Please trust me. I know what I'm doing. It's just a bad week. Anyways, you put it in your left hand and you just continue knitting as if that was the knitting yarn that you're supposed to knit with. And then this was kind of a tricky part. It's time to purl, so I had to flip the entire thing over the whole entire needle. Good thing they're double-ended like that. So the yarn is in the front now. Switch the needle back to the other end so I can knit with it. And then the very last stitch, this one worked out, but this one, 2 needles was just too much. I kind of flubbed it up a little bit, but you'll see what I end up doing here. It didn't work out. I'm trying to say that this is what you're supposed to do, but then I'm pretty sure it just jumps right out of my hands. Wait for it, wait for it. Maybe I'm just crazy. Oh yeah, maybe it'll work from this end. I'm trying to save it at this point. I don't care. I don't know what I was thinking. And then yeah, it fell. So I just ended up using my hands, long story short. Oh, also I'm going to plant cat grass, just so you know. I have seeding videos, planting seeds. Anyways, yeah, I just ended up using 1 needle in my hands. Just pull it over like that. Easy enough to do. No muss, no fuss. And all of the stitches are caught up. So now I can carry on with the row that I was on. Sorry, I went down. I actually had my arms up in the air for 9 minutes straight at this point. But yeah, now you can carry on with your knitting. The project is not wrecked anymore. So yeah, I'm going to sign out. This is the end of the video, guys. Hope you learned something, and I will see you in part 2. I'm not going to do an exit. Bye, everyone.